Hello everyone, my name is Louise Potter. I am originally from the UK, but I've been living in Brazil for a long time now. It's an honor to be here and to be part of this amazing community that actually believes that this is what the world is really about, community. So I believe that we should, as educators, bring back the understanding of what this word actually means and how important it is to be part of one. We are all getting together on this important day to help another community who are in need of our help. And this is what I I think we should do in our classrooms. We should encourage our students to see that when we join forces and fight for something, as a team and as a community, we go further. I think that we should encourage our students to understand that not everyone is the same. And we do not all think the same way, but we definitely all want to be happy and we all want to feel fulfilled. We should encourage our students to do their best and go beyond, but also not forget that those who might not have the potential to do it or the same potential to do it, they should help them on this path as well. We should encourage our students to be autonomous and seek not only for the answers, but also for the questions, in order to understand how the world works and understand how we can do and live together with so many different cultures and communities and beliefs. So that is one of the reasons why I embraced project-based learning in the English classes. Because it was a path that I found where I could go beyond teaching just the language. I could make real connections with the world outside the classroom and have students build their own perceptions of the world. And most importantly, bring in questions and not answers. The world has become a complicated place to live in. Because on the one hand, we have all this information on the tip of our fingers. But on the other hand, we don't have enough time to understand and make use of all this information. And that is bringing on considerable stress, not only for the students, but for the teachers as well. Language, I think, builds bridges, and it definitely is the bridge for communicating with other cultures. It is a means to an end and not the end itself. We are not teaching a language, we are teaching how to understand a different culture as well as communicating in it. So it makes no sense to speak another language if you don't want to understand and accept the culture. We will always be different from one another, and there will always be tons of diverse communities scattered around the world. So what we need to teach is that through language classrooms, there is no better or no worse. They're just different communities, different cultures. So learning a language, I believe, is letting go of some of our beliefs in order to let others in, other beliefs into our heart. It's about opening our heart to another community. And it is not just speaking using different words. It's about embracing another community without leaving yours behind. And so that's why, again, I said why I embraced project-based learning. So I want to give an example of a project that I did with some of the students. Okay. As always, project-based learning, it begins with a driving question. And the question that I asked my students, the driving question that I brought in, was how do we determine the ideals that should be honored in a model society and explain why they are the most important ideals? How could we live gracefully and respectfully? So that was a driving question that I asked my students. The main objective of this project was to make students realize that we are all different, and I wanted them to come up with something to come to a conclusion about how we could go about this. How could we live all together, and how could we have ideals that should be honored in a model society? Obviously, model societies do not exist. So that was one of the discussions. The first discussion that they came up with was, what is a model society? And how can we determine a model society within different cultures? So that was already, a very deep discussion in itself. So students were grouped into, smaller groups, and they all went down different paths for research. That was what was amazing about it. Some went to read about the human rights. Others began already discussing, women's and men's rights, society, and other groups went down completely different paths. But that's the beauty of project-based learning. So as the classes progressed, I and the other teachers, we brought in videos, TED Talks, readings, and articles as input for the students. So we did different graphic organizers to organize their thoughts. We had discussions. They interviewed different people around the school and, in their own communities, in their families, in their clubs and everything. They all came up, obviously, with, all these interviews. One of the classes, I remember, we organized as a walk-in gallery, showing moments in history of when the human rights were not respected. So at other stages, we also had actual language classes talking about persuasive language, about modal verbs. This is all, how project-based learning happens. So students went off to get answers to their questions. They had questions. That's what we wanted. I didn't want to give them any answers because, as teachers, we don't have the answers to all of it. I was teaching the language, but, through other means. So after a lot of discussion and input and study, each group presented their work answering, the driving question. And it was an amazing, everybody had different, obviously they had more doubts than questions in the end, than answers in the end, but it was amazing. So unfortunately in this case, it wasn't, let's say, a real PBL because I was not able to show it to a real audience. And so I could not call it a gold star project. However, the students were really involved. They were engaged the whole time, and the discussions were really great. And I think I learned a lot, and they learned a lot, and it was an amazing project. So I think, they also got a sense of what a community is and how we all are different and how it's difficult to have an ideal society. But anyway, I think it's, relevant to what's happening nowadays. So I hope I contributed a little bit to this amazing community, and I hope to get in touch with some of you soon, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much, and see you around.